I finished reading The Vet's Daughter by Barbara Comyns within 5 days, I believe. To start, Barbara Comyns' writing is so captivating. I absolutely adored her writing style, and I couldn't help myself. I caved in and bought the Juniper Tree, which actually came in today, so I might do an unboxing on that later on. Her writing style is very clear, yet it has this tinge of cautiousness to it. She writes her sentences with the perfect amount of words without being too wordy, and also pays much attention to detail and clarity. The best analogy that I can come up for her writing, it feels and looks like a fresh, untouched green chalkboard, but with a plot this haunting and horrific. It feels like that chalkboard is being tainted with fine dust and scratches. But yeah, this book was definitely very odd. It's filled with strange characters, complex behaviors that evoke such indescribable emotions. But all in all, I appreciate the main character. I think her narration was what tied this book together and made it so compelling. The narration has this childlike fairy tale essence to it, which is a good reflection of the main character's progression and deterioration of her innocence and shy personality throughout the entire book. I'm gonna try my best not to spoil too much about the ending, but it did leave me in shock. I kind of expected it, but it has this bittersweet yet very devastating kind of ending, which I think is what makes this book so interesting in a weird, quirky way. And when I mean quirky, I don't mean cringy. It's a dark, daunting, gut-wrenching kind of quirky. So take that as you will. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I had no clue where the plot was going when I first started this book. Nevertheless, I heavily enjoyed this book, love Barbara Comyns' writing, and I'd give it a 4.4 out of 5 stars. We moved over to the floor, but I had a $100 Amazon gift card that I've been saving since December, but I rarely purchase from Amazon, so I was having a very hard time deciding what I wanted to buy. Like I mentioned before, I got the Juniper Tree, but I also did buy Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by Patrick Suskind. This one is a very popular book, but from what I've heard, it's also really dank. So I might save this for the summer when the weather gets hotter. For the same exact reason, I'm also going to put aside Ghosts for the fall just so I have an autumnal read. And for the Juniper Tree, I'm considering just setting this aside for the time being as well. I'll get back to it when I'm craving Barbara Comyns' writing again. These two books have been on my TBRs. I just didn't expect to buy them so soon. Yet here we are. Okay, don't hate me for this one, but I repurchased the Anua Heartleaf toner. I use this religiously, and I know it doesn't really do much to the skin. There's only 2 reasons why I enjoy using this toner. The first, obviously, the viscosity. Like, it's so hard finding a toner that has this water-like consistency while providing benefits for your skin where you can visibly see changes. I think that's just asking for too much, so I've been clearing through 3 bottles of these so far. And the second is just, it cools my skin down. I think it's anti-inflammatory. It's been perfect for leaving my skin damp and cool so that the rest of my skincare products can be applied on with ease. And lastly, this item is probably the most unruly purchase out of my entire order. Oh my god. I got Kali Uchis Red Moon and Venus LP. I've been listening to this EP a lot more recently. I remember when this first came out in 2023, I had one hell of a spring semester in 2023. It was literally kicking me in the... So I listened to the EP when it first came out and I was blown away. I was in between this vinyl or the Marias, Submarine or Cinema. But knowing me, the Marias have been my top artists for 2 years straight. And I am more willing to spend my own money for their LP. I'm not an avid Kali Uchis listener. It was just this particular EP that I really enjoyed. So if I were to spend my own money, I think I would be more conflicted about actually spending it on this EP instead of the Marias. Me and my sister have decided that we will start collecting vinyls and then we'll buy a vinyl record player once we move, which is in like a few years from now, probably less than 5. Oh my god, it's gorgeous. What are you doing? My sister and I, we've just been slowly building up our collection, but so far my sister has Leve's Goddess. This was gifted to her from a friend for Christmas, and I bought the Pose Anomalies in the Oddity Space. I actually got this in Korea, so now we have a third new edition. I also forgot to add, but because I'm leaving Ghosts and Perfume for a seasonal time to be reading and the Juniper Tree for some other day, that leaves me with She's Always Hungry. I already started reading it today, heavily enjoying it so far, and I'll give my updates on that after I finish reading it.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that one. Yeah. Yes, so that's our princess. That's our princess. Something. Our princess wall. But it's like. So once you submit that, it's supposed to be secure. Then that screen once completed secure, and then you will also.
I just finished reading Eliza Clark's She's Always Hungry like 10 minutes ago, and it took me over a week for me to complete this. Eliza Clark, she's a more modern author, but she writes in a sharp and distinct manner. So it's very straightforward, which I love. This book is comprised of 11 short stories, all of which are surrounding the concepts of hunger. Hunger for food, love, lust, the world, wanting to fit in, all of the above. There is a content guide in the back of the book that lists out some trigger warnings for each story. With that being said, and for the sake of time, I'm only going to be lightly covering my least favorite and most favorite short story. Starting off strong, I really liked The Shadow Over Little Chitaly. This one was mainly talking about hunger for food, and it was written in a review style format. The reviews are from people living in the UK, I believe, about this restaurant called Little Chitaly, a restaurant that fuses Chinese and Italian cuisine. It was slightly unsettling, but it was probably the most humorous short story that I've read. And now, my least favorite, the king. I honestly blame it on the environment that I was reading that story in. It was past 9 p.m. I was on my way home. The train was packed. I was standing. It was ridiculously hot. I was wearing a puffer jacket and I was reading about cannibalism. Usually I'm not the type to have a weak stomach, but that story I just could not stomach at all. I remember I came back home. I was dizzy. I wanted to throw up. And I even skipped dinner because it was weird, very, very, very weird, disturbing, dark, gross. I was grossed out. Even after the shower, I felt so dirty. I don't know. It had me thinking for some time and I just did not enjoy reading it. I do gotta say, the very first story is a great story to start with. Very good introduction. I also like reading short stories now that I've read this, mainly because my attention span is kind of wonky, but this was great. I think I'll give it a 4.2 out of 5. Very intriguing.
And the eyes.
I have some good and bad news. This is the last book that I planned for March, especially because I've dedicated majority of my hours studying with midterms coming up. This is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. I read this in technically 3 days because there was just this one day where I read like 4 pages. It is about life's greatest lesson, so this includes primarily death, family, love, regrets, and all of these conversations are held between an old professor who suffers from ALS and is close to death, and his former college student. I really liked this book, but there was just something lacking, and I can't quite pinpoint what it is. I was going through some Goodreads reviews because I did not know how I was going to rate this book, and there was one that I stumbled upon which perfectly stated the things that I couldn't find the right words to say. There's a lot of sentimental value held in this book. It's just not explained in the way that I was hoping for it to be. I was thinking it would be a little bit more philosophical. There were a few sentences that did resonate with me, and unfortunately that was put in the afterword 20 years later, and I wished they included that in the original book. It says, "Taking just makes me feel like I'm dying. Giving makes me feel like I'm living." It is a profound sentence and so true, because the opposite we know is false. Taking never makes you feel alive. This was a pretty difficult book for me to rate, which is why I'm actually going to leave it up in the air. I'll rather have other people read it and see whether or not it resonates with them. It is a great book, very vulnerable, intimate kind of read. This has been on my wish list for over 2 months, which sounds like a short period of time, but I could not help myself. This is the Diptyque Le Papier Eau de Toilette in the 100 ml. It has notes of white musk, sesame, and mimosa. Something about it just feels so welcoming, inviting, and cozy. Initially, I went into the Soho location just to look at their bottles. Love the packaging of it. She let me smell a whole bunch of fragrances that they have, and she recommended me Fleur de Peau. But after going to like 4 different Diptyque boutiques, I was having a very difficult time between the two. I caved in at Grand Central Terminal and got Le Papier because, oh my gosh, it smells heavenly. The sales associate there was so sweet. He even gave me like 3 samples in case I wanted to return or exchange it for a different scent. He gave me Le Papier and Fleur de Peau because I told him about it. And then he also recommended me Lily Fea because it's supposed to be like a mix of Le Papier and Fleur de Peau. It has an aquatic but also warm kind of scent to it. The aquatic, I believe, is, you know, remnants to the lily pads, so it has that watery note, but the warmth and muskiness is from the bourbon vanilla. I hate anything gourmand, vanilla, amber, spicy, sweet, floral, depends on which kind of flower note it is. Wood, I'm usually very neutral about. I don't hate it, but I also don't love it. When I first smelled this in store on the piece of paper, it smelled very, very nice and fresh. The dye down on my skin though, that was where I smelled the vanilla. But it was very pleasant and delicate. For reference, I usually tip towards aquatic scents. If you can't tell already, I really like anything clean and watery. Fleur de Peau had a dye down of like cleaning products on my skin for some reason, which I personally really like. But if I'm looking at Diptyque, I wanted to get something out of my comfort zone. Currently, I have When the Rain Stops. This is Replica in the 30 ml. Springtime in a Park, also from Replica, in the travel version. I don't know how I feel about this. I was originally looking for Sailing Day, but they didn't have it in store. I went to Korea and got Kinfolk. This is Captain's Bar. Very citrusy, has a cypress note. And citrus, I'm usually okay with. But if you can't tell already, all of these scents are very seasonal, perfect for spring and summer. I feel like I should find a fall/winter fragrance. Or maybe even something that I could use interchangeably all year round, make it like a signature scent even. I think the whole purpose of Le Papier is to give remnants of ink and paper. I don't know what I'm smelling for me to be picturing any of that, but it does have like a rice steam kind of scent to it. One more thing, I do want to give a quick reading update. Okay guys, I lied. I picked up another book, but I don't plan on leaving it as like a March review because I don't plan to finish it in March. I'm reading it on the Kindle and it's called Bunny by Mona Awad. It's very popular on Book Talk and I wanted to hop on the train because she's releasing a prequel/sequel to Bunny, I believe in fall of 2025. So I kind of wanted to see what it was all about. Hello. Say hello.